This afternoon, we're going to make drilled boxes. Now, this is a really quick way to make a box, a container, but really, I make the box really quickly by drilling one size hole in this end and one size hole in this end, and then just turning it here enough to fit these parts together to hold well. I do that quickly with the drill because I like to spend my time decorating and carving. That's my personal interest. So I've just come up with this box that you can have it lay in any direction. Sometimes I don't want a box that sits upright like this. I want something like this, or something you could put in your pocket. Or maybe a tiny box that you're going to put needles in and put thread on and carry with you in your sewing kit. So we're going to talk about how to do that. It's a very quick process, and it really is what it's doing is making you a blank that you can then put back on the lathe and turn or carve or offset turn or use pyrography or carving on. All right, so let's get started. Wood turning, like all woodworking, requires that you have a plan. Now, do I go to the lathe sometimes and just start turning? Yes. But does the project I'm working on turn out always? No. If I start with a drawing, it always turns out because I've thought everything through before I go to the lathe. And it just makes it, I go through all my steps here on paper, and then when I go to make them, it's really easy. I don't even have to think about it. So let's just say this is the box I'm making, okay? So this is the box. It's really, I'm just going to make a tube, okay? And this is my tube, and so here's the blank I'm going to use right here to start this project. So here are the things I have to think about. I have to think about my beginning length of what I have, and I have to think about the thickness of what I have. So I've just quickly drawn a square. It's probably not even that accurate. I just draw it down as close as possible with just a ruler. And this whole technique depends on using 2 drill bits. It doesn't matter what size the drill bits are. We could turn a project this big, and we would just adjust to the size of the drill bits to fit the size we want to do. All we care about is that they are exactly a 1/4 inch difference. So on my piece, I'm going to drill a hole that's 7/8 of an inch here and 5/8 of an inch here. So just a 1/4 inch difference. I have to allot for this tenon, this length. Now this is not a great technique if you have beautiful wood and you want the grain to keep going throughout the box, because we're going to lose like 3/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch of wood that's going to fit into this piece. So our grain is going to be interrupted for that amount of time. I usually do this technique for carving and painting and things like that. I'm going to have to account for the distance of this in my overall length. So even though I have this big of a piece, when I get done, it's going to be this size piece minus this whatever distance I choose for my tenon. So that's the first thing I think about. And then I decide, oh, I'm not going to go halfway. I'm going to cut it off here. And if I do that and I have this 1/2 inch tenon, it means the top is this big. So that's kind of what I've come out with here. You have to leave room, thickness. If you have to figure out, here's my detail right here, I need to leave enough room to turn that detail. Or if I have a curve like here, I have to leave enough room to be able to turn that detail. So you can just mess around and just make a zillion of these and then put them together as cylinders, and then one at a time over time You can decide later what you're going to do, but you're still going to need to keep track of how deep is it and how much solid surface do you have here. How much, the wood here. Then you're also going to have to think about this. I want to make a triangle, and we learned how to do that in offset turning. So to make a triangle, it's going to require me to take away a lot of material. So my blank is this big, but my hole that I'm going to drill is only this big. And that's because I have to keep track of my thinnest section. How thin is my thinnest point going to be? So by drawing this, I can see, oh, I don't want to start with a big hole and only leave myself a ½ inch here, because then I can't do my triangle. So by drawing that out, it helps me see what size hole is that going to be. So plan first. And the other thing that planning does is it helps you think about the order I'm going to do this in and how I'm going to hold it. We're basically just going to be holding these pieces in a chuck and drilling in. Then we're going to hold this piece in a chuck and drill in. So we have to decide which one goes first. And I always think it's better to drill the big hole. Here it's going to be 7/8 for me first. Take that piece off the lathe and then put the piece that you're going to drill, hold it in the chuck, the piece that secondly that's going to be the small diameter that you're going to drill. That way you can just leave it on the chuck without remounting, and we can cut this material away right here and size it to fit into here. And we've eliminated a step of putting things in and out and in and out. So by drawing it, we also can write down here the order of work. We can say, oh, one, I think I'll do the big one first, big hole first, and then 2 is small hole. So we can put the order on our piece, and then we can also put that away as a reference if we ever do this piece again. Like my pencil box, which I've done a million times, I have a drawing of it, and it has a reference of all of the elements of it, and it makes it very easy when I go back to make that. All right, so here's that information. Now we have to think about the chucks. So let's go grab some chucks. I have to think about what chuck I'm going to use. I love this one. I love these jaws in a chuck, the long one. And that helps me hold these little thin pieces like this. So this will help me, can go really small and hold these little tube shapes. If you have a big enough piece, you can use this chuck, but it's important to always measure and know what your chuck can hold. So inside, my smallest piece that I can hold here is really about 2 inches. So this happens to be exactly 2 inches. So that means I could hold it with this. Now, traditionally, we put a chuck foot, but we're not turning this with a chuck. We're only drilling. So you'll see when we drill, we just need to hold it straight up and down because our force is going to be going down into the chuck, not off to the side. So that would work for this one. I can hold this one. I can go to a bigger one and figure out what is the biggest distance I can hold with these jaws, measure that, and I could hold them with this. So either of these will work. Now don't forget, let's just say you're going to start from a square. And you're going to start from a square. You can always use this for drilling only. You could come in and put this square down. I've sawed this, and we'll talk about aligning it in the lathe, but this chuck can also be used to hold a square. So those are going to be kind of our options as we make this box. All right, my piece is turned. Now, just to show you what I'm using here, I use steb centers. So I like to have this small 1/2 inch, and I like to have the 7/8 or a little bigger than 3/4, whatever that is. And I'm using a cone. These will allow me, it'll hold my little pieces fine, and it's going to allow me to, when I get to the part of turning, I can turn down easily to these kind of 2 points and turn most of the bottom and top surface. I've pre-made my cylinder and put it on. Lock, lock, lock. And now we come back to the drawing. Oh look, I can just take the drawing, because I've already planned it, and put it right onto the piece, and I know where I'm going to split my piece from there to there. So that's another reason for doing a drawing. You can just take measurements right off of it onto your piece. So I'm going to cut between these 2 lines. I'm going to separate this with this parting tool. Mine is a little bit longer at this side than this side, and that just helps it cut faster. So you might see me flip it because I'm cutting from side to side. And what you need to know when you're cutting into a cylinder like this is that we're not going to get really thin, but as we get thinner, this piece wants to bend up like this. And when it bends, it traps this tool, and it can catch it, and then it sometimes breaks. So when you use this tool in the middle of a piece like this, always go the width of the tool and a little bit more, so that you're always free to move this tool back and forth within this within the space. Don't go straight in and let it get trapped. Okay. Now I'm leaving a piece here the size of a 1/4. So let's take a look at that. So I've left it that big, the size of a 1/4, because I want to saw through, and it's going to leave me a disc. That disc that it leaves me is going to allow me to use my center finder to find a center on it if I think I need a center. If I go right through till the very end, it leaves a little nubbin that's a wad of, that becomes this little wad of end grain, and you can't find the center once you get down that far. So I'm going to saw this piece off. Whenever I saw, I take the tool rest away so that I don't ruin my saw, and I just find the middle of this, and I saw part way through, turn it part way through, because this is going to want to bend and pinch the saw also. So I just keep working my way until I hit the center. And then I can actually, when I get there, just do one of those things. Okay, so that's left me these 2 discs. Now, if I were to decide that I needed this for some reason to stay in order. Some boxes you want to stay in order like this. If I needed this to stay in order, I would utilize this disc with the small part of your center finder. The small side, when you're with your center finder, there's a big angle and a smaller angle. This smaller angle is great for finding the center of this. When you go to find the center of something like this, you always make one line, go perpendicular or parallel, and then go perpendicular. Don't make 1,000 lines, you know, the star make a star pattern, because when you make too many lines, you can really offset the center and you miss it. But if you just make one line, a parallel line, one line, a parallel line, it gives you your exact center onto a round circle. I'm going to use this chuck. Now this is something I think is really important, putting the chuck on. If you go like this and you start going like this, if this falls off, this weighs a lot, you can pinch your fingers on the ways. So when I'm going to put a chuck on, I always hold it in my arm like this, come up to where I'm putting it, and I turn the wheel at the end until it engages, and it's engaged, till I see that it's engaged. When I'm taking it off, I do the same thing. I put my arm under it like this, unwind it, so that I'm ready for the weight of that and I don't crush my fingers. That's just a good habit to get into. All right, now on this piece, does it matter? Do I need that center? I do need a center, because whatever I'm putting in this chuck, if this surface is not level, then this piece is going to tip off to the side. So I do want a center point so that this will push it into the chuck, and once the jaws are closed and it's engaged in the point of this live center, that will align it. I can use this, but we already have a center, and we don't care if the grain is aligned, so I'm just going to use the center we already have. So I first pull up, come close to what I'm working on. And I just gently hold it in like this. Just gently. I haven't really tightened this. And then once it's gently held there, I just start tightening it here. And then I just make sure this is in and locked. If this is not locked and you go to tighten it, it can lift this tailstock up and you're not really centered. So it needs to be locked onto the ways when you do this. So theoretically, if that's in the center, and now I'm in here and I tighten this, and you could never get this tight enough, I should be centered. And we can always tell that if we're centered by just putting up the end of our tailstock here, like this, and turning the piece, and see how it is in relation to the tailstock. So I'm nice and centered. So I'm ready to drill. All right, so I go back to my plan. My plan says, step 1, you're going to drill the big hole first, so that's on my big side. So I've put in the big end, and I'm taking away my tool rest. The tool rest is going to get in my way when I'm drilling, so I just totally get it out of the way. I'm going to back up my tailstock. And some lathes eject and some you have to tap out. Mine ejects. And I'm going to put in my Jacob's chuck with a 7/8 bit. And I'm going to double check this. Does it say 7/8? Because that's on my plan. Yes, it says 7/8. All right, so now I just have to make sure that I'm hitting that circle. It's not touching yet. And I like to hold this. Even if you can hold it like this, I just don't want it to catch and start spinning in my Morse taper in my tailstock. So I'm going to turn this on, just kind of a medium speed. It doesn't have to be going that fast. If you go too fast and it's a hardwood, then you're going to get friction and it could cause burning. I like to come in and out and clear the chips so nothing gets packed in there. All right, and here's what else I know. I know that the depth that I'm drilling is this deep. So my bit, and I knew this ahead of time, my bit isn't even that long to be able to go in that far. So I'm drilling right until I get to this surface, and then I'm going to stop. Okay. So there's the big one drilled. So it's drilled, the big one is drilled, but I'm going to go to my paper. I can see when I run this, I see this surface is like wobbling just a little. So it's that means if I were to just take it out, put my next one in and fit it, I might not be perfectly flat to this surface. So while it's in the chuck, I'm going to true up this surface. So I need to put that on my list for number 1. I'm going to say big hole, true surface. Now, as I go, I'm going to keep track. That'll help me keep track, and if next time I forget, I can just look at this ahead of time and I'll know what to do. So to true this up, I'm going to make sure, I'm just going to double check. I always double check that that is nice and tight. And if you want to, you can put your cone back in, but it'll keep you from getting this very edge right here. So I'm just going to go for it here. I want to get as close as I can. And again, this is where this pointy surface is really going to be great for skimming this edge. Okay, I like to make sure that that's nice and flat, and it is. Okay, I have a little bit of scrump here, but I can, I'll just hit this real quick with some sandpaper to get those little chips right there at the edge. So I'm ready to take this out, and I'll put the short one in. Again, I'm going to have to put my tailstock in, move my tailstock forward, make sure that it's locked, engage it in the hole, and just gently push it forward while I lock it here. Now, I could do this right now. If I think this is, and I probably should have done this before, if I think this surface is not true, it might be good for me to true it up right now before I even make my next hole. So it'll just be on the little thin edge of the tenon. So that's probably enough right there. come back, take out my drive center, and I have a second chuck. I always have two because I do this kind of thing so much using different bits. It's easier to just have two for drilling these things. So that looks pretty lined up. I'm going to move this out of the way, hold this, and drill this piece. Now before I go in all the way, I want to check this end. How deep am I going in here? So I'm going to right about here. So I can actually put a little mark right here. I'm going in that deep. All right, so we're drilled. So I've switched to my small tool rest. Now on my drawing also, I know this little tenon right here is this long. And does this matter? No, it doesn't really matter. But if you wanted that information for some reason, it's on your drawing. So now I need to do some fitting. So what's going to happen when we fit is that I know that we used a bit that was a 1/4 inch smaller to make this hole than the hole on our big piece. So that means the two sides are going to leave about 1/8 of an inch. So that's the information I know. So I'm going to come right here to the front. I'm not going to come back here and just start turning this whole thing down. Although I know I could safely probably take it down to here before I started fitting. And actually maybe I'm going to do that just to get things out of my way, but I know I'm not anywhere near where I'm going to need to be. So I'm just going to get rid of some mass. Now, I'm used to using this parting tool that's at an angle, so you're seeing my tool over like this. If your tool is flat, you're going to be coming straight on to this. I like this angle because this front edge really cuts also. It skewers and it's easy to cut forward. So you'll see me use this going back and forth like this and getting a pretty good cut. So now I'm going to go only here, like here in the first 1/8 of an inch to the front. I'm going to go down till I think I have 1/8 of an inch left. And then I'm going to stop and I'm going to try fitting it. If it's too small, it's no big deal. It's only 1/8 of an inch. But it's just this 1/8 inch is where I'm going to get my bearings. Now I'm also, because my tool is at an angle, I'm at an angle, so it's beveling like this. Now that's when I do boxes, I like to do that because that allows me to see where it's starting to fit. So it turns out that's just right. I've done this 1,000 times. But what I'm going to want to do is this. On this nub right here, that nub, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of a bulge in it like this, just a little bit. All right, so right now I've cut down to here, and I have a little bit of a slant right here. As I cut back, I'm going to purposefully leave this part big and then take this part down. But I'm going to just fit as I go. So, but that's what I'm going to be going for. So I'm going to work my way down. And now I'm just going to slowly taper this. As I taper this, I'm going to come and try it. I'm just going to put this on and turn it. And from turning this, you're going to see a shiny spot right there. That tells you where your compression of your fibers start. So I always want to keep it just a little bit bigger than that compression mark. Stop and try it often, and I'm doing this kind of twisting motion so you can see my compression mark is right here. So I'm just going to keep going in a hair more, a hair more. Now the reason I can leave this little bump in the middle is that we only have 1/8 of an inch, so this is actually a little bit flexible, and that's what's actually gonna hold our piece on for us. Boom, done. Okay, pop. So it's really compressing over this little bump right here. So now I'm going to look at any of these surfaces. That looks pretty good. If I want to right now, because I'm never coming back here, I might just take some sandpaper. I never go inside, but I might just smooth this edge right here. If you feel nervous about guessing this 1/8 of an inch, you can always take a pair of calipers, go to your original, this is the size we're doing, and you can set these calipers to this bit, but set them, go tight so they're touching, and then go big so that you know that there's not even, when they cross, they don't even touch. That way you know you're bigger than you need to be, and you can slowly work your way down. Okay, so calipers are your friend. All right, I'm just going to sand this a little bit. I've always been a fan for sandpaper of this Clings for Gold. It's pretty expensive, but it lasts quite a long time. I'm going to put the box together, and I'm going to make sure that I don't have any gaps or cracks here. All right. Now this end, I'm putting opposite ends together. So I was a little off at that end or that end, and that's the difference that I was off, but it's actually running pretty true. All right, so now we're ready to put it between centers. Okay, so here's our piece. We've already found the end of this one, so I am going to need these ends, right? Because now I have to put it between centers to true it up to get ready for my project. So I'm going to find the center here and here, perpendicular, parallel. All right, I have an awl right here, so I can just find that exact center, give it a little bump. Looks like I'm a little to the left, so I'm just going to true it up. Put it between centers, and now I'm just going to true up the outside of this, and then I'll be ready for my project. So you can see I'm just a hair off, but I have so much surface on my tenon inside that I'm not worried about it coming apart. The pressure from the tailstock and the head are equal pressure, pushing it in straight in. So I'm just going to true this up. Looks like I need to go just a hair more. Okay, so here's my blank slate. So now I can just, if I think I'm going to do my offset triangle, I'll go sand this out, put all my markings right here. If I'm going to carve, I'll do that right here on my surface. If you're off like this a little bit in your actual turning, just give yourself a, if you decide you're just going to turn this, you can give yourself just a little bit of a notch here, notch here. So wherever it meets, then you can't see. And that's true of all boxes, so you can't see it when it turns and it's off a little bit. All right, so there's my blank slate, and I'll lay out my lines and go turn my triangle. Just make as many as you can. It's just a great way to use scrap material in your shop and gifts for Christmas, and it's a great blank canvas for practicing your carving, practicing your offset turning. Thanks a lot for joining me.